chess assassin. Welcome to my channel, where strong chess players become chess assassins. Why you should play the Caro-Kann defense. The Caro-Kann defense allows a rock-solid pawn formation. Easy development. A formation that supports rather than hinders your bishops. And the opportunity to create dynamic, unbalanced positions. So the first three moves: e4, c6, d4, followed by pawn on d7 to d5. And white's third move defines which variation of the Caro-Kann. e5 is the advanced variation. Notice how white's pawn on d4 bolsters the pawn on e5. At some point, black is going to play the pawn to c5, which will attack the pawn on d4. And the theory is,
you must attack a pawn chain at its base.
And the pawn on d4 is the base of white's pawn chain. Two main ways for white to defend the pawn is knight to f3 or bishop to e3. We'll look at knight f3 first. From here, white will decide whether to place the bishop on e2 or d3. Let's listen to what white's king has to say.
You know, black's already well prepared for bishop d3. If bishop d3, then knight e7, which is where the knight was going to go anyway. Just develop the bishop to e2.
Okay, white's king has spoken. Just develop the bishop to e2. Okay, after c5, bishop e3. And now this is where the waters get murky. Which brings us to our next topic, dynamics and central tension. White takes care to overprotect the d4 pawn. Knight f3, bishop e3, and queen on d1. Queen b6 now attacks the pawn on b2. Notice that neither side is castled. How does white defend this position? Queen b1 or bishop d2, yet there's a third option, knight to b5. The bishop on e2 defends the knight on b5. The threat is knight to c7 check. After the bishop captures c2, queen c1. A trade will take place on c1. Bishop retreats to g6. White's idea now is to place a knight on d6. The problem here is that black's pieces are still on the back row and needs to catch up in development. After playing knight on g to e7, preparing to go to f5, black must play f6 to chip away at the pawn on e5. Notice white's pawns on e5 and c5. They are strategically placed. Black tries vigorously to untangle his pieces. This is where Black initiates a tactic called demolition. Let's see what Black's king plans to do in order to untangle his pieces. My plan is to capture the knight on d6, which protects the bishop on d5. Knight b4 wants to go to d3 for a fork.
We must undermine this plan by Black. Pawn to a4 must be played immediately.
Playing the pawn to a4 undermines Black's plan. As a result of this exchange sacrifice by Black, White in turn will sacrifice the knight on d6 in order to promote a pawn to the queening square. Not only is the knight on d4 hanging, but White also hangs the knight on d6.
Sacrificing both knights. I am the knight.
This concludes episode 1. Stay tuned for episode 2. Thanks for watching.